Hey, it's April with the Love and Loss Project, loveandlossproject.com. So I thank you for watching this, if you're watching this live or if you're watching the replay. And I just want to let you know, I'd love to hear your comments. I do know for some reason sometimes the comments don't always show up. So if I don't respond to what you're saying, I apologize. It's just, it might not be loading properly. So I just want to welcome you into this space. Today I'm taking a few minutes between my client sessions just to come online and talk a little bit about the idea of resistance and resistance to healing and how that sometimes shows up for us when we experience the loss of an infant, pregnancy, or child. So if you know someone else who might benefit from being a part of this conversation as well, then please share this video and help me on my mission and getting this support out to as many people as possible and helping to break some of the silence and isolation surrounding baby loss. Thank you. So, what is resistance? Well, here's kind of what I believe. I believe that resistance is something that we all experience in different ways and forms. Resistance is that thing that kind of grabs hold of us when we're maybe starting to feel a little bit better again. And then it's like that thing that kind of just pulls us back into this place of feeling dark and feeling a bit hopeless again and feeling a bit stuck in the suffering of it all. Resistance is that thing that makes us feel guilty whenever we start to experience feeling a bit of good or a bit of joy or even laughing again. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you maybe even catch yourself starting to really laugh and have a really good moment. And then it's like the next thought that pops up is some kind of version of like, maybe I should not really be laughing so much right now or having such a good time right now. And I think that that is one of the really common, but sometimes not very talked about experiences that we go through after loss. And I think it's really important that we actually take a minute to throw the idea of resistance into the daylight a little bit. Because if we don't, then it's kind of this thing that just creeps in and grabs hold of us, and we don't really consciously become aware that it's even happening. So it becomes really hard for us to disentangle from that phenomenon. So here are some warning signs of how resistance possibly shows up in action. Resistance might look like making plans with your friends, but then canceling the night of when you're actually supposed to go out. It might look like saying that I'm going to get out and go for a walk tonight, but actually just spending your time watching Netflix that you don't particularly enjoy or even get any value out of. Resistance might mean saying, I'm going to book an appointment with a counselor, I'm going to invest in getting some good care for myself, but then you kind of only get as far as maybe even Googling it, but you never actually hit that contact button. Resistance might mean that we say, okay, I'm going to start really eating healthy today because I recognize that this grief is a physical experience and I want to give myself some really good nutrients as I'm kind of going through all of this, but then we stop off and get junk food on the way home instead. So resistance can show up in lots of ways and forms. Even in this moment, just check in. Resistance might be that urge to keep checking your phone or keep working on other things, even if you've made the decision to already spend a moment watching this broadcast. That, my friends, is resistance. It's that thing that when we take one step forward to feeling good or returning to life again, that just kind of tugs us a little bit back. And resistance can run wild if left unattended because it's just a form of fear, and that's what fear does. So I say let's throw it into the daylight. Grab a pen and paper right now and see if you can answer this question. In what ways is resistance showing up for you? How does that look in your life? In what ways does guilt show up for you? When you catch yourself starting to feel better, what is the purpose of that? what is that voice that we all kind of hear in our heads that tells us that's too much, that's too far, that might not be okay? Just rein it back a little bit. What does that voice say to you? See if you can just tune in and actually put down a few things on paper to start to just track and notice how resistance actually shows up in your life in the real world. I can definitely understand, that experience in many ways, because for me, I think of even just when I got to that point where I was starting to really get out and into the world again, and I was starting to go out and purposely try to find things that were enjoyable to do, I would sometimes have this fear that would come up that if people knew that this is what I was doing, or if they saw me out doing these kinds of things, then maybe this would somehow send the message to them that I was actually over it, or I was fine, or I didn't really need any support, or this was a non-issue for me now, even though obviously I was still really impacted and still working really hard through this process of grief. So that was one of the ways that I noticed resistance showing up for me. It's that fear in the back of your head, right? It's those worried thoughts of what other people think or what the impact of this might look like or be. Another one that I know is really common for people is when we have that guilt that hits us, where we start to experience something positive or we start to laugh out loud, and then we kind of think maybe I'm somehow betraying my lost little one, that I'm somehow even able to feel this moment of happy again. Maybe I'm somehow being a really terrible angel mama, and it's that kind of pain of like guilt that hits us for even just returning to life again. And there's that part of us that says that somehow we are betraying our lost little ones when we do that. That is resistance. That is that thing that keeps us in that middle ground between loss and life. That's how that works sometimes. So I know another thing that comes up for people a lot, and I totally get this one as well, and I think it's really common, is that my pain, my grief, is the only connection that I have left to my lost little one. And if I move through this pain, if it becomes a bit reduced for me, then maybe that's my only tie to my little one that I've now let go of. And so even though the tears feel awful, even though the mourning feels terrible, even though the magnitude of this can be really crushing, there's that idea that this is the only thing that I have left of my experience of being a mom to my little one. So it's important to give yourself that space to just notice, what are these thoughts? How do they show up in your life? How do they take hold? Because I think that they're there for all of us. And if we don't really get clear and really aware of how these thoughts sneak in and how they just kind of, talk and almost whisper in the back of our heads, then it can just feel like truth, right? Or it can just feel like this instinctive response that we're kind of just getting dragged around by. And I would argue that when we're going through really, really hard, challenging times in our life, like the experience of losing a little one, this is a time when we really, really need to get deliberate and move into this place of taking as much responsibility for our own care and our own wellness and our own healing as possible. And there's times when that means looking at what is it that gets in the way for you of letting yourself return to life again. So I hope that you found this helpful. I would love to hear what stood out most to you. And if you did find this useful, then please share it and help me on my mission of getting the support out to people who need it and breaking the silence. And if you have a question that you would like me to discuss in another one of these videos, then send me a message and let me know. I'm at lovelostproject.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Take care.